Dear colleagues, it is my honor to take over the chairmanship of today's meeting of the Foreign Affairs Committee and to greet amongst us very warmly Minister Volkanom Bozkirom, Minister for EU Affairs and Chief Negotiator of the Government of Turkey here in Brussels in the European Parliament. He is very well known to many of us MEPs, either from his previous diplomatic career or his function as a member of the Parliament, member of the Grand National Assembly of Turkey, as well as the chair of the Committee on Foreign Affairs. Mr. Bozkir was also a permanent representative of Turkey to the European Union and Secretary General for the European Union Affairs in the Foreign Ministry of Turkey. He is just coming to talk to us after I would say, final meeting with the current Commissioner responsible for enlargement, Mr. Stefan Füle, especially after the recent enlargement report and the progress report which was published on the 8th of October. And he will be here with us discussing the accession negotiations of Turkey as well as the process of reforms. Minister, cooperation between the European Union and Turkey can only advance on the basis of mutual commitment and benefits. Here I particularly note that my country, now a member of the Union, Croatia, and your country, Turkey, actually opened the negotiation process on the 3rd of October 2005 in Luxembourg. We see that the dynamics and the evolution of this enlargement process are far more complex and far more demanding for all sides in the case of your European process, which is in many aspects unique and actually lasts since 1963 Ankara Association Agreement. What would be also important in our debate today that you enlighten us on the progress of the reports in the field of judiciary, on the fundamental freedoms, and also in particular we would appreciate your explication of the alignment of the Turkish foreign policy with the EU's foreign policy, which is one of the important aspects. Given the fact that your neighbourhood is more than challenging, we always think that our countries are, everyone thinks his country has a challenging neighbourhood, but yours is at the moment one of the most challenging, I think, and therefore we would appreciate your comments on the situation in Iraq, in the situation in Syria, as well as the fight against ISIS, and in particular the Kurdish situation currently at the borders with Turkey, especially Kobane. So, Mr. Minister, I would like to give you the floor for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then members please signal your desire to take the part in the debate. Mr. Minister, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and distinguished members of the Foreign Affairs Committee, it is a pleasure and honor to be with you today here. I see many faces from my previous capacities, friends, and also new members of this committee, but it has been always a pleasure for anybody addressing this, and I'm very happy that you have been able to give me this chance. I'll just talk on what Turkey is thinking, or what is the new Turkish strategy vis-à-vis the European Union for a while, and then perhaps to make this not a monologue but to make it a dialogue. I will be very happy to listen to your questions and try to answer as much as I can. First of all, in Turkey we have a new era where the Turkish president was, for the first time in the Republican history, elected by the people. We have a new president, we have a new prime minister, new government, and within this context we call it a new Turkey, where you have seen some new approaches or the reconfirmation of the previous approaches in a very strong way, especially towards the European Union. And me, having been appointed as the EU Minister, is one of these messages, I think, having been in the 40 years in the diplomatic service, where 14 years was spent only for the European Union affairs, uninterrupted, has, I think, a meaning in it. And fortunately, this coincided with the new European Union structures. You had an election, a new parliament has been elected, some faces has gone, but many of the faces remain, but there's a much stronger and much ready to take an important place in the decision-making process in the European Union. We have a new Commission, we have a new President of a Commission, and we have also the new head of the Council. So I think this new Europe and new Turkey, fortunately, at the same time frame. So I think we are trying to use this in favor of the mutual interests of both sides, and I will explain to you what we have done in the last month or so. First, we have produced a new European Union strategy. I have distributed. Most of you have read it, perhaps, but it is going to be the constitution of our EU relations from Turkey. It has the vision in it. It has how this relation will be handled in it, and having this as the main platform, we are also making other steps forward. The first step was in this. There are three pillars. First pillar was the political reforms. And Turkey is, of course, giving the first priority to political reforms, and it has been, of course, the case when we started the negotiations. The Commission's report was saying that Turkey sufficiently fulfilled the political criteria. Now the gap between sufficiently fulfilling and completely fulfilling is going to be our priority task. And for this we had a reform monitoring group consisting of 4 ministers, Minister of Interior, Foreign Minister, Justice and the EU Minister. And this will not only come together and make statements, so it will be the admiralship for the political reforms, preparing it, enacting it, adopting it, implement it and put the reforms into life. So on Monday I proposed to the Ministerial Council to change the name of this group, which existed since 2004 or 2003 even, and the name will be not the Reform Monitoring Group but the Reform Action Group, which will symbolically give the impetus to the group itself as well. The second pillar was the adaptation of the European Union acquis in Turkey, and we call it we give it a lot of importance to it. So we are planning to have a two-stage plan, a national action plan, so that under every chapter there will be written what laws, what secondary laws will be enacted until the mid of 2015 and in the period of 2015-2019. So the first part is ready. The Ministerial Council has approved it, and today I shared it with the European Commission, the Enlargement Department, and I will announce it after having their reviews as well, their contributions as well, end of this month. The second part will come mid of November, and we will publish it after again sharing it with the Commission at end of November. For these two important steps forward, we also had the Prime Minister's circular instructing the ministries and institutions in Turkey to first consult with the European Union Ministry when they have any law and any draft law, and we will give them our views on whether this draft law is in line with the European Union acquis communautaire or the European human rights court decisions, etc. The third part was the third pillar is the communication strategy, and this has been already prepared and approved by the Ministerial Council, and today I will announce it at 4 o'clock in a press conference, the European Communication Strategy of Turkey. This has two parts. One is, I think, in the last 3 years or so, the photographs we are looking has been perhaps sometimes wrong photographs, or sometimes we have really, because of not talking to each other or explaining to each other some of the facts, some wrong concepts have developed. So we are going to change this with the correct photographs. European countries look when seeing Turkey, or we will correct the photographs so that we will have a better understanding. Also, the image of European Union has been damaged in Turkey. Some wrong concepts have developed, saying, for example, well, do we need European Union? We are rich enough. Why should we use our precious money to save countries in trouble? Like type of very wrong wordings, legends have developed. So I think this strategy is based on repairing the European Union image in Turkey and repairing the Turkish image in the European Union. So what we will do is we will use the civil society first of all. In the beginning of the 80s, we had less than 20 NGOs or civil society organizations. Now we have 90,000, more than 90,000 civil society organizations, and perhaps more than 20,000 foundations. Civil society is important in democracy. Without civil society, I can't imagine any democracy can be healthy or really properly functioning. So we are proud that we have this number of civil society organizations, and they will be a part of us not only in explaining to the European Union or explaining to Turkey what both sides are thinking, but in the political reform process, or in the second pillar I have mentioned to you, they will be a part of the decision making. Of course, the second pillar is also important, these plans, which will prevent any shock attempts with laws or draft laws. So everybody with this transparency will see what Turkey is planning to do until 2015 and until 2019. And we will of course use this also to bring a discipline in lawmaking and put our pressure, if there is anything not written here, to ask questions. Why is it necessary, and why has it been not included in the plan, type of an agreement. So and I think we should also bring a new style. I have been present, attending meetings of this committee, very important committee, or the meetings of the joint parliamentary committee meetings, and I think we have to produce a new style. Our style should be to listen to each other, criticize each other, respect the criticisms, also to understand, to build a new atmosphere where we can understand each other better. So perhaps some previous meetings which ended up with not a positive result but some damages, if I may say so, should not be the case anymore. And I will do my utmost to really impose this new style and to get benefit from meetings, not to have those meetings have a damaging result. So with this understanding, I'm stopping here to open the platform to your questions so that we can establish a dialogue in that. And I see the new rapporteur here with I wish all the best to her. I will have a meeting with her, and looking forward to the cooperation we're going to have, Madam.
Thank you very much, Minister. You were right in the very good framework of time. In order to organize a little bit our debate and the sequence of your interventions, I will first give the floor to the chair and then to the vice chair of the EP's delegation to Turkey, and then to Rapporteur Madame Piri, as well as Shadow Rapporteur Mr. Van Orden, who just left, as far as I can see, but he excused himself, yes, as far as I understood. But we have Mr. Ceballos, who is Madame Ceballos, who is also our rapporteur. So, Mr. Kefalogiannis, the floor is yours, please.
Sorry. Θέλω να καλωσορίσω τον Υπουργό στην Επιτροπή μας.
Welcome, Minister, to our committee. We in this committee and in the delegation for relations with Turkey hope to enjoy excellent cooperation with you. Turkey is one of the European Union's main partners, and the European Union is also one of Turkey's main partners. The procedures for Turkey have not advanced as we would have hoped, and we must hope that during the next period, in cooperation with our Turkish parliamentary colleagues, we'll be able to make progress in the right direction. Always, of course, in respect of the principles and the acquis communautaire of the European Union. There are a series of subjects that we have to address with Turkey. I get the impression that Turkey is a country which attaches a lot of importance to stability in its region. At the same time, there need to be rules for a good neighborhood relationship with all the countries in the region. So let me ask the Minister a question. In the light of recent events in the Middle East and around the Mediterranean, how far is Turkey prepared to adopt United Nations resolutions on law of the sea, and what does Turkey think about the European Union's exclusive economic zone, specifically that of Cyprus? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kefalogiannis, chair of the delegation. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Takis Hadjigeorgiou.
Κύριε Υπουργέ, να σας καλωσορίσω στην Επιτροπή.
Minister, welcome to our committee. My name is Takis Hadjigeorgiou, and I'm a member of the AKEL party of Cyprus. Let me first of all say that you see that our position is a moderate one on the European Union side. That's something that needs to be stressed. But I have to say that I also agree with you with your statements of the recent past. Now let me address the Cyprus question. There are countries in the European Union which are hiding behind the Cyprus problem in order to slow down Turkey's accession. There are statements made in the press saying no Turkish accession until the Cyprus problem is resolved, which sounds well and good, but what it actually means is that let's hope that Turkey never manages to solve the Cyprus problem. I think we need to work on this issue. We need to denounce, we need to name and shame the countries that are hiding behind this problem. I think in your efforts for accession you need to look for some allies, real allies that is. And you'll only find those among the Greek and Cypriot representatives and those of a few other countries. You need to try to find synergies on the basis of common interests pointing in the same direction. There are a lot of people working in the European Parliament and the Commission to open up new chapters, and that's what you're doing as well. But the trouble is that the non-opening of certain chapters is because of Cyprus, and a lot of people who are ignoring this particular elephant in the room. So I think you need to look again at the Cyprus problem. And what your country has recently been doing in the Cyprus's exclusive economic zone is bad, is negative, because it's not going to facilitate a solution. It prevents the President of Cyprus from attending the negotiations. And let me conclude with a rather broader issue covering the Islamic State and its attack against Kurds in your region. Are you going to continue on the same position? That's to say, not taking a real role in the fight against the Islamic State because you want Assad's regime to disappear at the same time, or are you going to change the position soon? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hadji Georgiou. Now I would like to give the floor to our rapporteur, Madame Piri, and then to Shadow Rapporteur, Madame Ceballos.
Thank you. Dear Minister, thank you for your informative presentation. It is very clear that you and your team are committed to the accession process. And in the European Union strategy, which you have prepared as soon as you have taken up your duties, you point out that reforms will continue for the alignment with the EU acquis. And we welcome this. We see it as a very positive approach that Turkey is committed to continue work in the areas of the rule of law, democratization, fundamental rights. We are aware that in the lack of formal negotiations on Chapter 23 and 24, the situation is not ideal. In this House, we have repeatedly called in the Omen report, as adopted last year, for the screening reports for these chapters to be conveyed to Turkey. We will find innovative approaches, such as the positive agenda, to work on these issues despite the blockage. Nevertheless, the opening of these chapters is the most effective tool we have to ensure alignment with European core values. In the Commission's progress report, some positive developments have been highlighted, such as the ongoing settlement process. But also some serious concerns have been raised, especially on the quality of the rule of law and democracy. In my report, I will pay specific attention to two issues related to this. One is the good old separation of power, the independence of the judiciary, and the second is a pluriform media and the freedom of speech. And dear Minister, I would like to hear your reactions to the comments made in the report presented last week by the European Commission, specifically on these two topics. And thank you for coming to our committee. I hope to welcome you more often in the future, and I'm very much looking forward to a fruitful cooperation.
Thank you. Madame Ceballos.
Tack så mycket.
Thank you very much. I'll be speaking Swedish, so I can see everybody putting their headphones on. Well, I'm from Sweden. I was in the Foreign Affairs Committee for 8 years in the National Parliament in Sweden, and Sweden is perhaps one of the closest allies for Turkey joining the European Union. There's a very broad political support all the way from the left to the right of the spectrum supporting Turkey's membership. And we tend always to talk about the things that the Minister has mentioned here as well, to listen and to be able to criticise, because if you're good friends, then you can have a dialogue on both what is good and perhaps what is less good. Here in the European Parliament, I represent the Green Group. As far as we can see things, a very important topic at the moment that worries us is the situation in Kobani. We would like to know more about how Turkey views its role there. We see again and again that there are indications, not just from Kurds, but from others as well, that Turkey is actually preventing the Kurds to fight back against ISIS rather than to facilitate that process. It's important for us to work together with the Kurds in this position to be able to make ISIS retreat, to beat ISIS. It's not just Assad who is an enemy of Syria here. It is ISIS as well. And maybe in that respect that should be borne in mind. Something that is a further concern to us are the peace negotiations between Turkey and the PKK guerrillas. We know that discussions have been ongoing for a while now, and we want to receive assurances that those are not just playing to the gallery, that these talks are being held not just to show to us in the EU that there are negotiations ongoing, but they have to have some content. And we have to know you have to know that we are worried about these attacks on the Kurds. A further issue that I think is very important, that we've heard about over recent years, is the issue of freedom of the press and freedom of expression. These are things that we worry about as well. We'd like to hear more from you on those. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Ceballos. Alors, je propose maintenant que...
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ceballos. Well, I suggest the Minister takes this first round of questions, and then we'll take the other members who've asked for the floor. Mrs. Alliot-Marie, Panzeri, Tannock, Schaake, Vergiat.
Epitideos, Mavrides et Ali. S'il y a quelqu'un...
If there's anybody else, please signal. We need to get through this in time, so if you could keep to a minute and a half, that would be good. But Minister, you have the floor now.
Okay. Thank you very much for the presentations of, in a way, the representatives of committees and the rapporteur and the Green Group shadow rapporteur. I forgot to congratulate Mr. Kefalogiannis, who has been now the co-chair of the JPC. I'm going to meet him in person today, and I'm looking forward to that meeting. And of course, I'm going to talk with him how we can make this JPC, who has been there since 1966 and who has been established as a platform to help the relation, not to damage it, so that we can talk with my precious colleague on new methodologies, perhaps, to make this possible. And I would, of course, very much like him to act like a referee, and as I was the chair once of the Foreign Relations Committee, be equal to every view mentioned in the committee. I will really expect this, and I know that with his abilities he will be able to do this on this direction. Let me perhaps categorize issues, and instead of replying directly, to explain to you what our position is. Let me first start with what's happening in Syria and Iraq, in our southern border. I think it's much of the concern of Europe, the world, Turkey, but also I think the Foreign Affairs Committee's priority is on that as well. I was in Germany, I had attended the EU committee there, and the same questions were asked. So first of all, what happened in Iraq and Syria, the coming to surface of this very strange entity, if I may say so, a terrorist group, which in a way surprised all of us, having new mentality, having new style of killing people, and entering into our life as a new kind of a terrorist organization, made us really reply with not very strong answers to the problem. Here, this Islamic State, now they call it, some people started calling them ISIL, which was very dangerous because L means Levant, and Levant is a larger region than Syria or Iraq. Levant means Cyprus, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Israel, Palestine. That region is called Levant. So using the term ISIL, without their intention giving them a larger area, and I think making the problem a more larger one. So I think the terrorist organization itself corrected this by calling themselves IS instead of Iraqi Sham Islamic State. First, this is a case. Secondly, this group is an unconventional force. And it will be very difficult to deal with these forces with conventional forces. Remember how they captured Mosul. With 1,800 guerrillas, they captured Mosul while there was an Iraqi conventional force of 55,000 soldiers. They escaped, they left their uniforms behind, and these guerrillas entered the city, and now they still control the city. They are not only in Kobani or in small towns. They have more than half of Iraq in their hands, and dealing only with Kobani is like killing a mosquito, while the swamp will produce more mosquitoes. So our intention is to dry the swamp so that we don't have these type of mosquitoes, which is threatening, endangering regional security, world security, Turkey and Europe and United States. So for us, it is a very difficult situation. But in particular, in Kobani, when people were threatened and they wanted to escape for their lives, we opened our borders. In the first day, 138,000 residents of Kobani came to Turkey. This amount is perhaps more than all what Europe has received from Syria. And now we have 200,000 residents from Kobani in Turkey. So really, when that's why I was saying the image should be corrected. We are looking at perhaps sometimes wrong photographs. So these people, we didn't check at the border when they were running for their lives. Who are you? Are you a terrorist? Are you this or are you that? We just opened the borders and they are in Turkey. So they might be a PKK sympathisant, or they might be just an ordinary person, but we thought a human being's life should be saved, and they are there. We also opened our borders to Syrians who were escaping from Syria, from bombings and killings and a lot of other damages. Now we have over 1.5 million Syrians in Turkey. Again, some of them are in camps, some of them just passed the border because they had some families, because they had some money. They preferred not to go to camps, and they went into Turkey, and there are no travel restrictions in Turkey. So some of them are in Istanbul, some of them are in Ankara. They are all around Turkey. And we spent about $4.5 billion up to now to give a better life for these refugees. We don't call them refugees but guests. And the contribution of the Western world is $150 million. But we haven't asked any money from anybody, and we're doing it for humanitarian purposes. We think neighbor is our neighbor, and once these incidents are over, then we will have a better life, better look to the future together, because what we have done will be remembered. We did the same thing in 1988, when Iraqi Kurds when chemical weapons was used for the Iraqi Kurds, under the Saddam regime. 500,000 people came. They stayed 1 year and went back to Iraq. We opened our borders to people from the previous Bulgarian regime, threatened by President Zhivkov at that time. 350,000 people came. We looked after them, and some of them went back, some of them are Turkey. We are celebrating this year the 520th anniversary of the Sephardic Jews coming to Turkish territories, and they are Turkish citizens. We have lived together. So this is our style. We open borders, and if they are in difficult situation, we think it is necessary. It's like an earthquake, perhaps. We can't say it has been an earthquake, live wherever you want. As we have taken care of earthquake disasters, we are taking care of this disaster as well. So for us, the important thing is to solve this problem. And I think the only way to solve this problem is to deal with this unconventional force with unconventional forces. If we send conventional forces, they will face difficulties there. And conventional forces, if we can't establish a coalition, United States should be there. European powers, military powers should be there. Then we might be perhaps able to use conventional forces. Otherwise, nobody wants to send any troops, and everybody is looking at Turkey and blaming Turkey for not having sent troops. We don't have an intention to send military troops to other countries. And that is why we are saying, let's do it together. We will need a UN Security Council decision. We will need a NATO decision to do that. If not, then our proposal is to use unconventional forces, which is already in Syria. We can separate the forces, the opposition forces from Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hezbollah, and those people who are really trained to fight this warfare with this unconventional force could be brought to Turkey. We can train them together, and we can equip them together and send them to do this and to solve the ISIS problem once and for all. This is our proposal. What we are proposing is to do this. We are also asking to have a no-fly zone. We are also asking to have after we get rid of the ISIS in Iraq and in Syria, let's have a secure zone there. We call it a secure zone, not a bumper zone, a secure zone, so that some of the refugees could be sent back to their homes, they can have a better life, and the region could be in a better format. So this is our proposal. I haven't heard a counter proposal. Turkey hasn't heard a counter proposal. I don't think anybody has any answers to this very difficult question, but we have to think it together. Sending Kurdish guerrillas to Kobani is a legend. Who are these Kurdish guerrillas? Nobody knows. It's just a rumor. We have contacted with the PYD. We have contacted with the Barzani. There are no guerrillas to be sent there. 55 guerrillas came back from Kobani to Turkey. So, I mean, we shouldn't talk on legends, but on realities. Thirdly, for us, the Cyprus problem is very important. Our EU relations go back to 50 years. It shows how stubborn we are, how decided we are, how much tolerant we are to continue this relation during the 50 years. But also the Cyprus problem is there with us for 50 years now. So from Turkish point, we want to solve the Cyprus problem. And Turkey will do everything from its part. And I think there is a new situation, new advantages on the island. First, there has been new natural sources found in the south. And it will be, of course, a wonderful situation if these are real and if it could be used for the island. We think that it should not only be a source for only the southern part of the island, but it should be for the island, and I don't think anybody has any objection to that. Secondly, we are providing drinking water to the island. Twice the amount both south and north will need will be there end of this year. And of course, there are good movements on the island where in February the two leaders have signed a declaration. We should follow that. So we have separated the two things, the solution of the island and the effect of the problem of Cyprus on the EU negotiations. Our view is that we shouldn't use elements which is necessary to solve the Cyprus problem to be used for opening chapters here in the European Union negotiations. For 8 years, we haven't been able to open 14 chapters just because some elements of the Cyprus problem wanted to be used for the opening of chapters. So we will continue to do that, and we will expect our Greek Cypriot friends, our Greek friends, our European friends to look at the bigger picture and to see the benefits from this, and first to be with us to solve the Cyprus problem, and from that perspective let us also continue with the EU project.
Minister, if we can make a little break, let's try to be solidaire as much as we can. I now realize that the 45 minutes which was envisaged for this exchange of views was definitely too little when we discussed or when the chairman decided about the agenda. So if I may appeal to you, please focus on questions 1 minute each, and apologies to our Libe colleagues who are already here for a joint session which was supposed to have started 3 minutes ago. So let's try to wrap up this debate in the next 15 minutes. Madame Alliot-Marie, c'est à vous, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'll be brief. Minister, it's never easy to come before a committee like this. Nevertheless, I would like to put a question to you as Minister. I had discussions with my Turkish counterpart, and at one stage we talked about our relations, and he said that it's important that Turkey come closer to the European Union and make headway on a number of points, but at the same time it was perhaps not desired by a majority of people, perhaps not even by the Turkish government, that Turkey actually join the European Union. And I'd like to know if that position, which I heard a few months ago, is still the same.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Mr. Panzeri.
Grazie, Ministro.
Thank you, Minister. I'd like to say briefly that in the context of the difficulties of the enlargement process of the EU to Turkey, process flawed so far, your country has tried in the last few years to situate itself geopolitically. First of all, it began some years ago to be a point of reference with the Arab area, but I don't think that experiment was successful, and now I see a sort of bifrontal attack on Turkey, looking at Europe, but at the same time trying to look at the regional context. But there are some very brief facts as well. Turkey is showing a certain amount of reluctance to fight ISIS. That's what we think in Europe. The bombing a few days ago of the members of the PKK is a very serious thing, and the struggle with ISIS, I hope, will be solved, but this gives rise to various questions. First of all, what is the consistency which you see in this plan of looking at Europe and your desire to be a first regional player, an autonomous player, which is making up the system of alliances and breaking it at will? And also on the Kurd issue, you were very diplomatic. I'd like to be much more blunt on this. We know your position, and it's not just a question of independence, but nor can it be a matter of exploiting the confused situation to put an end to the Kurdish matter. And from that point of view, I would like there to be a minimum amount of clarity, because this is really bringing its weight to bear on the accession process as well. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Tannock, the floor is yours.
Minister over here. Well, I do think it's lamentable that in spite of the peace negotiations going on with Mr. Öcalan's PKK, your president has chosen to describe ISIS and the Kurdish YPG PKK groups as being at the same level as terrorists. My questions are as follows. I would like to know what concessions has Turkey made to ISIS in exchange for the release of your 49 hostages, and your call now by your government for a no-fly zone, would this also apply to the coalition planes who are carrying out sorties against ISIS, conventional forces? Because that were the case, clearly your call would seriously hinder our efforts to defeat ISIS and help them, in fact. So I want to know who exactly would the no-fly zone apply to. I'd also like to know why Turkey does not join the United States and the European Union in their sanctions against Russia, particularly given the grave discrimination now faced by the Crimean Tatars, who are there following the annexation. And after all, Turkey has justified for many years keeping the border shut with Armenia on the basis of its solidarity with its Azerbaijani Turkic brothers. So why now are you not joining us in sanctioning Russia for its illegal acts of aggression against Ukraine? And I'd also like to join in colleagues on the issue of the 200 miles exclusive economic zone for Cyprus. Surely the launch of the Barbaros ship, which is a rather unfortunate name, Barbarossa, for gas exploration within the EEZ of Cyprus is a violation of UNCLOS and the EU acquis, which Turkey is committed to signing up to.
Thank you, Mr. Tannock. Mr. Ali, please, 1 minute if you can. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Minister, welcome in the European Parliament. First of all, I also want to congratulate you on your new position. And we are convinced that after your leadership, the commitment for the accession process will be in good terms. As have been said, Turkey is a strategic partner of the European Union, and if we look around, the questions we are asked towards Turkey are not those connected with the criteria, but more as a strategic player in the region, and regarding the stability of the region, it also improves the European security in the region. What I mean, having regard the refugees problem, which is in Turkey, because, for example, in Bulgaria we have also faced with that problem. And I want to thank and congratulate you for the efforts which Turkey makes with that refugee problem. Because if Turkey is not as a binding area there, there will be a big problem for Europe as a whole. Because we know as a last frontier, I am finishing, and I want also to say that all the positive steps which have been taken and your commitments, and that the new legislation of Turkey brings closer the European Union, closer to the European Union than the opposite. So I wish.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. I'm sorry, but we need to be very fast. Madame Vergiat, s'il vous plaît, 1 minute, s'il vous plaît.
1 minute, in 1 minute, if you could. Well, I'll do my best, Chairman. Many here are indeed worried about the situation in Syria. Resistance in Kobane is symbolic of the necessity to fight against IS. You said that this is an appearance of a new non-conventional force. That's true, but it hasn't come from out of the blue. And maybe it would be good for Turkey to understand the nature of this issue, otherwise we're playing on ambiguities. I'm not really happy and satisfied with your answer. You're talking about humanitarian support being offered to refugees from Syria. Nobody can contest that, but you're talking about buffer zones and no-fly zones. That's not really going to help the urgency of the situation, because in Kobane we're talking about an urgent situation. When Mr. Erdogan, your president, says that the PKK and IS is tantamount to the same thing, then we raise our eyebrows and raise question marks to that. At least I do. And as Mr. Panzeri said, following the bombardments on the Kurdish zones in Turkey. So why are you not letting Turkish Kurds join the fight in Kobane? You said these are rebels and we don't know who they are. Please don't mock us, Minister. Where is the peace process with the PKK? That seems to be going awry given recent events, so please don't play a double game and be clear in what you say by way of an answer. Thank you.
Collega Castaldo, prego.
Thank you, Mr. Castaldo.
Prego.
1 minute, please.
Grazie.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Good morning, Minister. I would like to pick up the subject of negotiations, since this is a subject that we raised with Commissioner Füle a couple of weeks ago. I come from a country which has great cultural and historic links with Turkey, that is Italy, and obviously we would like to see Turkey as a bridge between the Middle East and Europe, but as our colleague has said, we need to be blunt and open among good friends and not be afraid to discuss the most thorny issues. Commissioner Füle also referred to the possibility of progress and justice on fundamental rights. And I'd like to ask you about the lack of definition of terrorism in the criminal code, because in my view as a lawyer, definitions are a basis of the rule of law. And also I'd like you to shed light on the block of using social networks, particularly during the last election campaign in your country, and I'm referring to Twitter in particular. And I support those who called for light to be shed on the Turkish position on Kobane, particularly looking at the risks of further massacres in that area, which we cannot allow. Thank you.
Notre collègue
Epitideos now, but please keep within maybe 50 or 60 seconds, all colleagues, otherwise we will have passed our speaking time.
Κύριε Υπουργέ, είπατε προηγουμένως ότι στα πλαίσια...
Well, we heard earlier that in the framework of the European perspective for Turkey, you're trying to change the picture, the image of your country. Maybe I could just comment that Turkey is still threatening one of the countries of the European Union with force and by encroaching on the economic exclusion zone of 12 miles. In the Cyprus issue, you are illegally occupying 37% of the territory. We heard that Turkey would never pay what is expected of them in terms of human rights and the consequences that have come as of the invasion of Cyprus in '74. Turkey is not controlling the borders to Greece, and that means that there are enormous flows of refugees coming to Greece. What do you say about this? Would this help the European perspective of Turkey?
Very much. Very quickly, Mr. Lenars, Mr. Mavridis, s'il vous plaît.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll be very short. I have two small questions. In your new EU strategy document, you speak of the necessity to have a new constitution. This is something we've discussed here on many occasions. However, the process in Turkey itself seems completely dead, and I was wondering what you will do to re-engage in this process. Secondly, you said today, and I welcome that you will closely cooperate and consult with the European Commission when deciding about new legislation. Taking this into consideration, looking back on, for instance, the changes made to the High Council of Judges and Prosecutors, which were later deemed unconstitutional, how do you look back on that, because the damage in terms of reassignment and dismissal of judges and prosecutors was already done at that point, and how will you take this with you in terms of future legislation? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mavridis.
Yes. I'm going to be short as well. I just listened to a phrase that we should use realities and not legends. I'm going to concentrate in two realities. In 2005, we had a negotiation framework between the European Union and Turkey. There were certain obligations. We are 9 years later. Nothing has been fulfilled. I'd like to hear your comment. And two, another reality. In the Eastern Mediterranean, Cyprus, Lebanon, Israel, and Egypt have agreed certain division of the exclusive economic zones between them based on the law of the sea, which is also European acquis. Do you think that you are going to respect the right of those countries based on the European law, or do you plan not to respect it? It's as simple as that. We want to know the realities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Signor Borghezio, prego.
Ministro, come lei ben...
Minister, as you know, IS is not only a threat to the Middle East, it's a terrible threat to all the West, and in particular the Christian West, because of the black flag and the prospect of that being raised over the St. Peter's Dome in Rome. And you are knocking on the door of Europe, but you are refusing to defend the citizens of Kobani. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Very gentle, please be kind and diplomatic. Our last speaker, Mr. Papadakis.
Κύριε Υπουργέ, πολύ θα χαιρόμουν.
Minister, I would be extremely pleased if we did have a new Turkey, but quite on the contrary, you are pursuing the same policies in Turkey. You're still sending ships out to the economic exclusion zone in Cyprus, and you are violating the European Union's borders. Turkey has to keep to the values and principles of the European Union, but they're not doing that. And regrettably, you are showing that you obviously don't wish to do that either. You have to do something to bring us onto your side so that you can show that you're respecting European values and continue to do that. But with your position, the position that you've adopted, you are maintaining that the European Union needs to adopt itself to your political practices. And finally, on ISIS, if you want to kill the mosquitoes, then you could, of course, spray them.
Mr. Papadakis, with this debate is closed. Now we will ask Minister Bozkir to do impossible, to try to answer to all of these issues in 5 to 7 minutes, but I guess the morale of this exercise that next time we will have him in front of this committee, we will allocate far more time. I apologize once again for all of our Libe colleagues who are already here. Mr. Minister, concluding remarks. Thank you.
Appreciate your trust in me to answer questions raised in 20 minutes, to answer all of those in 5 minutes, but I'll do my best. First of all, I will not go into the same trap using the older style in this committee to answer the same with the same style. First, PKK-ISIS relation. PKK is a terrorist organization. It is a terrorist organization declared by the European Union, by NATO, by the United States. Mr. Tannock perhaps forgotten what UK has done to deal with the Irish problem. What they did is the same what we are doing. The terrorist organization and the political party was kept around the table to solve the problem, and even in London bombs exploded. They continued to reach the end game. What we are doing here is PKK is a terrorist organization. Together with the political party in the parliament, we are having negotiations, and this peace process is continuing. You should read the progress report, which really gives importance to the positive developments, and no matter what, we are going to continue with this peace process because it was in the favor of the Turkish citizens of Kurdish origin, it's in the favor of northern Iraq, it's in the favor of the region, it's for the future of Turkey, it's important. The other important thing is what you have said, the Turkish support, Madam, for the EU process. In Turkey, at no time, those people who are completely against the European Union has reached more than 10%. What changes is the undecided. The more the undecided grows, the less the support is seen. But now we have 55%, something like support. So if we can prove that the bicycle is moving or the ship has left the port, this undecided will be smaller and the decided will be more. Concerning, of course, a lot of other questions, I would have really wished to explain. If you give me time, I can, but in 5 minutes it's very difficult to really reply these questions. But the new constitution, for example, Mr. Lenners has said, we made a progress. We couldn't do it, but after the next elections, if our party gets the necessary majority to take this to a referendum, we do not have it now, then we will work for a new constitution. There was a question also about Turkey, what Turkey used to achieve the Mosul deal. In Mosul we had 49 people working for the Turkish consulate in the hands of ISIS. So why should Turkey let 49 people in the hands if Turkey had good relations with ISIS? In all these kind of incidents, from 1 people to 50 people, every country first wants to save the lives. Every country first goes into these type of deals. So what we have done is to save the 49 lives, and this is a secret deal, and it's not a matter we can discuss here. UK has done it, many other countries has done it, and I don't think this should be a blame here. Concerning on the Russian sanctions, we are completely against any country territorially occupying other countries' territories. So we have openly declared that we do not accept the annexation of Crimea by Russia. We give importance to the Ukrainian territorial integrity and political stability. But on the other hand, I personally don't think that sanctions have given any result in anywhere. Sanctions didn't give results in Libya, didn't give results in Syria, didn't give results in Iraq or Iran. So to apply sanctions to Russia is not the way to handle this. And many countries have good relations and economic benefits here. So we think that we do not have to comply with these sanctions where these decisions have been taken without us being present and being presented to us just to apply it. I think to bring Russia into the game is not to apply sanctions but to increase the benefits. I think we should be careful while dealing with Russia. Russians play the Russian chess game better than anybody else, any country in this world. But now, because of these sanctions, they will play this Russian chess game in order to force us to play the Russian roulette. So I think when we are trying to solve the Syrian problem, the ISIS problem, we don't have to forget Russia's influence there. We have to, one way or another, convince Russia to be a part of the story. We need a UN Security Council decision. Russia is there. We need to stop the arms delivery to the Syrian authority. Russia is there. Everywhere Russia is there. And if we push Russia to the corner, the return will be an unsolved problem, and we're trying to solve the problem instead. How much time do I have? 2 more minutes. Concerning the legal system, the justice system in Turkey, I think what happened last Sunday is a good proof that the legal system is functioning well. 14,000 judges and public prosecutors voted democratically to elect the High Court of Judges and Public Prosecutors. And I think this is a good demonstration that it can be done democratically as well. So we are now on a very good path, and it is our priority concern to have a judiciary which is trusted, credible, and we can rely on. So even during the 3 years when we had some difficult moments with the European Union process, we had 6 reform packages which really presented important elements for the judiciary independence and credibility. And in 2009 we had the judiciary reform strategy. We are applying it and also renewing it so that the judiciary system, which is the main pillar in any country, for economy, for democracy, for human rights, anything, the judiciary must be independent and fair. So that is the answer to another question. 2 minutes is gone. Please invite me again and ask more questions, but give me more time to answer questions than you have given time to ask questions. So I'll be very happy. Don't please say after I leave that he has escaped without answering questions. I'm ready to answer, but this chairman doesn't give me enough time. It's his fault.
Okay, I will take on the responsibility for the unanswered issues which we raised today. I thank you very much, Minister, for your presence here among us. I think we all understand that the Turkish relationship with the EU per se is very complex, and the regional context and the global context are making it even more demanding. So I think we will use another occasion in a close dialogue with you when you will again be the guest of the Foreign Affairs Committee. I thank you all for the interest, and I apologize to our LIBE colleagues for the delay. 1 minute break and then we continue on the other item. Thank you. Sorry.